Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. First of all, I hope you all had a happy new year. Secondly, I'm sure you're here to learn about how to optimally build your ship so you can have a 350 million credit payout just like this. Just a little disclaimer first. The previous payout was out of an Anaconda. These ships are just stepping stones to get you there. I'm currently sitting in the Asp Explorer, which is the first ship that I would recommend you try this core mining out in. The base ship itself is only just above 6 million. This makes it fairly entry level when you compare it to the other ship that I'm going to recommend, which is the Python. But before we talk about the Python, let's go over the Asp in detail. We know from my previous video that there are special components that are required to be outfitted on the ship. Otherwise, you'll just be sitting out there in the asteroid field twiddling your thumbs. If you haven't checked out my other video, I definitely recommend it because it goes over a step-by-step guide showing how to identify Void Opal cores and how to mine them. Unfortunately, none of the required components that we need to outfit the ship are located at this station. I'll leave a link to this website down in the description, but it's back to inara.cz so we can search for modules near us. On the upper right hand side of the page is where you can input search requirements, so you can specify your reference system and also the modules you're looking for. Once you've input your search parameters, it should populate a list of stations in order by distance to you. It's worth checking the station just to make sure that it has all of the components that you're looking for. So in this case, Sharapov Ring does not have the pulse wave analyzer, so we want to make as few trips as possible. We're going to try to put this in the search parameter. You can also specify multiple search parameters. Just be careful, because if you get too specific, it may not list any possible stations. So it looks like Fraser Orbital has what we need. Let's go head there. Alright, so now we've got our hardpoints, we've got our seismic charge launcher, and our abrasion blasters. For our utility mounts, we've got our pulse wave analyzer. I've got some other defense utilities in there as well. You can ditch those and go for a A-rated pulse wave analyzer if you want. For our optional internals, we've got our detailed surface scanner, refinery, collector limpets, biweave shield, prospector limpets, fuel scoop, and our storage. There are some engineered components just because for this video I used my engineered exploration ship. And just in case you're curious, here are the core internals. Some of you may be thinking, why fuel scoop? I added the fuel scoop just because it may take 5 or 6 jumps to reach the optimal selling station, and you don't want to run out of fuel on your way. It's also really good practice to never fly without a fuel scoop. Next, we're going to optimally set up our fire groups so that we don't have to switch every 2 seconds. For this, we're going to set our discovery scanner and detailed surface scanner as a singular fire group. Then we're going to set our pulse wave scanner and our prospector limpet on the same fire group. By putting your prospector limpet on the pulse wave scanner fire group, you can pulse to find one and prospect it without switching. We're going to put our abrasion blasters and our collector limpets on the same fire group. That way, when we're knocking off the surface deposits, you can also fire the collector limpets to go pick them up. Finally, we have our seismic charge launcher as our last fire group. Here's an overview of how the Asp build is looking. It also shows the cost of each component. If you're struggling on credits to afford this ship as it's currently built, you can start out with the base ship with all E-rated modules, and I'd recommend first upgrading your frameshift drive and starting out with one of the lower rated pulse wave analyzers. Either way, you can build a low-end Asp mining ship for around 8 to 12 million credits. Didn't go over it visually any of the Python build. This is what it would look like. There's considerably more storage, but there's also a lot more sticker price. I'm assuming that if you're looking at the Python build, that credits are not a major issue, so hopefully you don't have any trouble A-rating all the core internals. Again, I included the fuel scoop on this build just because in order to get that sell price of 1.6 million for the Void Opals, you're going to need to probably jump 5 to 6 times. In case you wanted to experiment with the ship builds yourself, the website is coriolis.io. It's a great tool for practicing building ships so you don't have to fly around the galaxy to test out if it'll work or not. I'll leave a link to it in the description. So I didn't go all out with the abrasion blasters on either of those builds just because I'm not super into a cheesy way of trying to get more ore out of the surface deposits, because I'm not entirely sure if it's an intended game mechanic or not. The builds that I also went over are just that. They're my own opinions on optimal ship builds for core mining or Void Opal core mining. It doesn't really mean that if you build your own ship different than that it's not right. What really matters is that you have all the necessary mining components and that you're happy with your ship and that it functions. I do think having a fuel scoop and making the 5 or 6 jumps to sell your haul at the station that might be offering 1.6 million credits versus a station that's one jump away for 780,000 credits, I think it's really worth the extra 5 or 6 minutes of jumping around. I mean, if you just think about it in a numbers sense, you're making more than double just for jumping an extra 10 minutes, 5 minutes each way. If you think about it with an Aspole with 60, then you're looking at roughly 54 million extra in credits you're not making just for taking those extra couple jumps. Maybe you're thinking that you can't afford either of those 2 builds or even the base Asp build. Then maybe the first step is to do the Roads to Riches, which is an exploration route that targets highly valuable planets and systems. I'll leave a link to the Roads to Riches in the description, but it might be worth taking the hour or 2 hours to get your first 20 or 40 million and outfit a ship completely. So you've completed your build and are sitting there wondering how in the heck do you find a Void Opal hotspot. I didn't go over this in my last video, but you need to switch to the analysis mode when you're approaching a planet with icy rings, and then enter the surface scanner. These keybinds may not be set up by default, so you might have to go bind them in your control scheme, but then you want to fire a probe at the ring. Once it contacts, it'll ping the ring and then let you know if there's any hotspots. To view the hotspots, you have to exit out of the surface scanner and go to your navigation panel. Now you're set up to mine Void Opals optimally and sell them for the most profit. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing or following me on Twitch to see when I go live for more. Please let me know your thoughts or improvements on the ship builds that I've set out in the comments below.